Can you believe that over 1,600 men, women, and children were once forced into cramped, airless rooms, dark, suffocating cells that crushed their spirits and stripped them of their dignity as they awaited the cruel fate of being sold like property? It's a place that holds the pain, stories, and echoes of thousands of enslaved Africans. Let me take you through what I saw, heard, and felt. As I entered the compound of Seriki Abass, the sight of the Barracoon stopped me in my tracks. The walls of the small, weathered structure seemed to tell stories of despair and sadness. All these were not decorations. They were items given to Seriki Abass in exchange of hundreds of enslaved human beings. This wasn't just a building, it was a place where history was boldly written. The guide explained that this barracoon, a holding cell, was where enslaved Africans were confined before being sold and shipped off to foreign lands. My chest tightened inside the first room. The space was suffocatingly small, just 8 by 9 feet, with a single tiny window, no larger than 16 by 10 inches, hardly letting in light or air. I tried to imagine what it would feel like to share the space with 40 other people, all chained to the floor. The chains still lying in the room were cold and heavy to the touch, their rusted surfaces carrying the weight of history. This was where enslaved men, women, and children were forced to live for 3 months or more, awaiting the return of the ships that would carry them to fate worse than death. In this tiny room, they urinated, defecated, and slept, all while being tightly shackled. The guide described how the lack of ventilation often caused the people to suffocate. Others succumbed to disease and starvation before the ships even arrived. I learned that there were 40 such rooms in this house, each holding 40 people. That's 1,600 enslaved humans confined here at any given time. For over 40 years, this compound was a hub of human misery. Every day, enslaved people were brought in, held, and traded like commodities. The guide's words hit me like a wave. This wasn't just history. It was a business. And for Seriki Abass, it was a lucrative one. One umbrella was traded for 40 Africans. A bottle of gin could buy 10 human beings. I saw one of the mirrors, its glass dull with age, and I couldn't believe it was traded for 10 enslaved Africans. Imagine someone handing over their fellow human being in exchange for such trivial items. As I held the umbrella in my hand, it felt heavy, not because of its weight, but because of what it symbolized. The guide explained that Europeans would convince local chiefs and traders to hand over their people in exchange for goods. Families were torn apart for umbrellas and alcohol. The absurdity and cruelty of it all just left me speechless. Ironically, the man who owned this barracoon, Seriki Abass, was born under the name of Ifaramilekun in Abeokuta. He himself was captured during an intertribal war and sold into slavery as a young boy. He ended up in Brazil, where he worked as a slave before gaining his freedom. Fluent in Portuguese and well-versed in European trading practices, Seriki forged strong relationships with European slave traders. This enabled him to thrive, amassing wealth and power through slave trade. He died on the 11th of June, 1919, and was buried in the compound along with his last-born child. When I stepped out of the Seriki Abass barracoon, I closed my eyes and imagined the cries of those held here, the mothers mourning their children, the men cursing their captors, the silent tears of those who had lost all hope. This wasn't just history, it was a wound that still aches, But this is just another part of the story. Ahead lies the enslavement gallery, where the faces of the enslaved, the documents of the sale, and the tools of their suffering paint an even clearer picture of the horrors they endured. Stay tuned for the next part of the hunting journey of Badagry. Thank you.